Dear students, welcome to the Language English class. In this session, we will do an analysis of the sonnet Shall I Compare Thee, written by William Shakespeare. I hope you remember what we had learnt in the previous class. We had learnt about the life and significant works of William Shakespeare, and you were given an introduction to the sonnet, its types, structure, salient features, and we had also learned about the important themes of Shakespeare's sonnets. The objectives of today's session are to understand the theme of this sonnet, to critically analyze the sonnet, to appreciate the poet's affection towards his friend, and to appreciate the poet's skills and his sense of aesthetics. So, we will begin this session with a reading of the sonnet number 18. Please listen carefully. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Shall I compare thee? This sonnet number 18 is addressed to a young man, his close friend, who is identified as Mr. W.H., probably the Earl of Southampton. So Shakespeare here addresses his close friend. Hence, the main themes of this sonnet are friendship and immortality of art. The sonnet begins with a rhetorical question. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Where the poet or the speaker compares the beauty of his friend to a summer's day which is very lovely and temperate. The poet thinks that his friend is more lovely and attractive when compared to a summer's day. In the beginning, the poet says, Shall I compare you to a summer's day? In England, summer is the most beautiful season. Spring or summer indicates beauty, happiness, and youth. Hence, he compares his friend's beauty to a summer's day. But very immediately, the poet thinks that his friend is much more beautiful than a summer's day. He thinks that nature is transient and the beautiful things of nature are short-lived. ಈ ಸಾನೆಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕವಿ ತನ್ನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತನನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಬೇಸಿಗೆಯ ದಿನಕ್ಕೆ, ವಸಂತ ಕಾಲದ ದಿನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಲಿಸ್ತಾನೆ. ಆದರೆ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಈ ವಸಂತ ಕಾಲದ ದಿನಕ್ಕಿಂತ ತನ್ನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತನ ಒಂದು ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಏನಿದೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಮಹತ್ವವನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿದೆ. ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನೇಚರ್ ಈಸ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಯಂಟ್. ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಯಾವತ್ತಿಗಾದರೂ ಮರೆ ಆಗುತ್ತದೆ, ಅದು ಕ್ಷಣಿಕ. According to the poet, the sweet buds of May will wither away quickly, and even the eye of heaven, which is too hot and bright, may at times become dull and unattractive. The poet calls the sun as the eye of heaven and says that he shines too brightly sometimes, but at times he too becomes dull and unattractive. Nothing is permanent in nature. ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೂ ಕೂಡ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಮೇ ತಿಂಗಳಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಗುರಿದಂತಹ ಹೂವುಗಳು ಕೆಲವೇ ಕ್ಷಣಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಡಿ ಉದುರಿ ಹೋಗ್ತವೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಸೂರ್ಯ ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಕಾಶಮಾನವಾಗಿ ಹೊಳಿತಾನೋ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಬೇಗ ಮೋಡಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ಸರಿದು ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ, ತೆರೆಯ ಹಿಂದೆ ಅವನು ಮರೆಯಾಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ ಯಾವುದೇ ವಸ್ತುವು ಕೂಡ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅವುಗಳ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಅಲ್ಲ. All the beautiful things created in nature will eventually come to a decline and will lose their charm in the course of time. So, the poet says that every beautiful thing in the nature will change, will lose its beauty and charm, and one day it has to wither away. So, in the first two quatrains, the poet brings up the issue of the beauty of his friend, but immediately he says that his friend is more beautiful than the summer's day also, because summer is not permanent. Not even the beautiful buds that bloom, not even the eye of heaven, that is the sun, is permanent, because sometimes even he goes behind the clouds. But even the third quatrain begins. There is a shift in the thought. The poet says that it is true that the beautiful things of nature lose their charm, but the poet's friend is an exception, whose eternal summer shall not fade and who will remain young and beautiful forever. ಆದರೆ ಮೂರನೇ ಕ್ವಾಟ್ರೇನ್ ಶುರುವಾದ ಕೂಡಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವುದೂ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ವಸ್ತುವು ತನ್ನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯವನ್ನು ಕಳೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ಕ್ರಮೇಣ ಅದು ನಾಶವಾಗಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಆದರೆ ಮೂರನೇ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಾಟ್ರೇನ್ ಬಂದ ಕೂಡಲೇ ಈ ಒಂದು ಏನು ಮಾತನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಕವಿ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಂಚ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಕಾಣುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ಬದಲಾಗುತ್ತದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನಾಶವಾಗುತ್ತದೆ, ಆದರೆ ತನ್ನ ಮಿತ್ರನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೂ ನಾಶವಾಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. He says that the poet's friend is eternal. How can a person be eternal? He means that the poet's friend may die physically, but his beauty is immortalized in the form of this sonnet. ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನಾಶ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಯಾವುದು? ಯಾವುದೂ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಇದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ the poet's friend, he may die physically, but his beauty will never die. His body may perish, but his beauty will never perish because his beauty is stored in the form of this sonnet. Thus, his beauty is eternal, which cannot be destroyed even by death. So, what the poet wants to convey here? He wants to convey that people may die, but their memories will live forever. So, he says that his friend will die one or the other day. He will physically die, but his beauty will be remembered forever because his beauty is kept alive in the form of this sonnet, and this sonnet will never die. Hence, his beauty will also never die. ಕವಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಈ ಒಂದು ಪದ್ಯ ಯಾವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಸಾಯುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆತನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತನಿಗೆ ಸಾವು ಬರಬಹುದು, ಆದರೆ ಆತನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಸಾವಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಶಾಶ್ವತ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಅವನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪದ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಡಗಿದೆ. Thus, the speaker concludes that so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this sonnet, and so long lives the beauty of his friend, and hence it is eternal. So, in the couplet, the speaker concludes that so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, ಎಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೆ ಮನುಷ್ಯರು ಬದುಕಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಎಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೂ ಮನುಷ್ಯರು ಉಸಿರಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕಣ್ಣುಗಳಿಂದ ನೋಡಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೂ ಇದು ಇರುತ್ತದೆ. ಇದು ಅಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾನೆಟ್. So long leaves this, and this gives life to thee. So the sonnet lives until people live, and until then the poet's friend, he will also live. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೂ ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ಇರುತ್ತದೋ, ಎಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೂ ಮನುಷ್ಯರು ಇರ್ತಾರೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೂ ಈ ಸಾನೆಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೂ ಸಾನೆಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಆತನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯವೂ ಕೂಡ ಬದುಕಿರುತ್ತದೆ. ಹೆನ್ಸ್ ದ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಟರ್ನಲ್. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಮ್ಮಾರ್ಟಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ನೋ ಡೆತ್. So I hope students you have understood this sonnet. Let us look at the form and style of this sonnet. The sonnet number 18, Shall I Compare Thee, is an English sonnet which has 3 quatrains and a couplet. So he takes up the issue of the beauty of his friend and builds up the argument through the 3 quatrains. So in the first 2 quatrains, he takes up the issue of his friend's beauty and says that in nature every beautiful thing will face its end. will has to it will have to decline and wither away, but there is an exception. Even though everything comes to an end in nature, his friend's beauty is eternal, because it is not in the form of his friend's physical beauty, but it is stored in the form of poetry, and hence he logically brings the issue to a conclusion in the couplet, where he says that so long as men can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this. This means sonnet, and this gives life to thee. And hence this sonnet is going to keep his friend as well as his beauty alive. The poet uses sonnet as a means to describe the beauty of his friend and thus immortalizes his beauty. This aspect reveals the power of literature and art even over death. So, dear students, Shakespeare has used many literary devices to beautify this beautiful sonnet. He has used the rhyme scheme AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF in the quatrains, as we have already seen, and GG in the couplet. We have also the use of the figures of speech. So, what is a figure of speech? Figure of speech is a literary device which is used to enhance the beauty and effect of any literary work. Here he has used many figures of speech. One is rhetorical question. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? A rhetorical question is used to give some stress to a point, and usually this question does not expect any answers, but it is used to reinforce some opinion of the speaker. Metaphor. ಮೆಟಫರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ರೂಪಕ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ರೂಪಕ ಅಲಂಕಾರ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಮನಾದದು ಮೆಟಫರ್. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ವಿ ಡೂ ನಾಟ್ actually compare the two things, but we say that one thing is the other. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ವಸ್ತುಗಳ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ನಾವು ಸಾಮ್ಯತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಹೋಲಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಳದೆ ಇದೇ ಅದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ದ ಪೊಯೆಟ್ ಯೂಸಸ್ ಒನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್, ದ ಐ ಆಫ್ ಹೆವೆನ್, ವಿಚ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದ ಸನ್. ಸ್ವರ್ಗದ ಕಣ್ಣು ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕರಿತಾನೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಅದು ಸೂರ್ಯನಿಗೆ ಬಳಸುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಶಬ್ದವಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ದೆನ್ he uses personification. Personification is nothing but attributing human qualities to an inanimate object. ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಜೀವ ಇಲ್ಲದೇ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ವಸ್ತುವಿಗೆ ಜೀವ ಇದೆಯೇನೋ ಅನ್ನೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಬಳಸೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾತಾಡಿಸೋವಂಥದ್ದು. ಹಿಯರ್ he uses personification for death. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾವನ್ನ ಅದೊಂದು ಮನುಷ್ಯನೋ ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾವನ್ನ ಮಾನವೀಕರಣಗೊಳಿಸಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅದನ್ನು ಪರ್ಸಾನಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ I hope you have understood this analysis of this sonnet. let us recapitulate what we have learned so far in this session. Sonnet number 18 by William Shakespeare is based on the themes of friendship and immortality of art. Here, two things are important. One is friendship and other is immortality of art. The speaker compares his friend's beauty to a bright summer's morning, but later he finds that his friend's beauty outshines even a summer's day because nature's creations are short-lived. The beauty of his friend will not decline that of the eye of heaven, and in this sonnet his beauty is immortalized. Speaker's friend's beauty is immortal because it will never fade away like other beautiful things of nature. ಸೊ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಹಾಳಾಗುವಂತಹ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯದ ರೀತಿ ಈತನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸುಂದರವಾದ ವಸ್ತುಗಳು ತಮ್ಮ ಸುಂದರತೆಯನ್ನು ಕಳ್ಕೋಬಹುದು, ಅದು ಕ್ಷಣಿಕ. ಆದರೆ ಈತನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಶಾಶ್ವತ, ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಅದು ಅಡಗಿರೋದು ಈ ಒಂದು ಪದ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ. ಪದ್ಯ ಶಾಶ್ವತ, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಅವನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯವೂ ಶಾಶ್ವತ. Thus, through this sonnet form, using many literary devices, the poet establishes the power of literature over death. So, we can conclude that literature or art has the power to conquer death. Dear students, I hope you have understood this sonnet. For further references, you can refer to these books and web sources. If you have any doubts or queries, you can please post the comments in the comment box, and I will see you in the next class with another lesson. Thank you, dear students.